Welcome to My Thailand Stories. Today we hear from an accountant who spent 34 years analysing financial documents for a living. He knew how to spot fake tax returns. He knew how to verify bank statements. He knew how to check company registrations. When he found an antique export business in Ayutthaya, he verified everything. The showroom looked like a museum. The artefacts were authenticated by a woman with a degree from Chulalongkorn University, who had worked at the National Museum for 6 years. She walked him through ancient ruins at sunset, cooked massaman curry in her small apartment, told him about her difficult divorce, touched his hand on the balcony, and said Helen would want him to be happy again. He checked every document. He missed one thing. The company had been dissolved 2 years before he invested. Here is his story. I am Anthony, 58 years old, and 3 months ago I stood outside a locked gate in Ayutthaya staring at an empty building through the bars. 3 weeks earlier, this place had been full of artefacts, glass cases, authentication certificates, export paperwork with government seals. Now it was dark, empty. Julian was gone. Narisa's number disconnected, and £218,000 had vanished into Thailand like smoke. Let me tell you how an accountant gets destroyed by people who studied exactly how accountants think. I have worked as an accountant for 34 years, manufacturing firms in Yorkshire. I know financial documents. I know how to spot irregularities. I know what fake tax returns look like. It is not just my job. It is who I am. Numbers do not lie. People do. Numbers tell the truth if you know how to read them. I thought I knew how to read them. My wife Helen died 3 years ago. Aneurysm. Completely unexpected. We had always planned to visit Southeast Asia together. She loved Asian art. We collected small pieces over the years, bronze Buddhas, ceramic bowls, things with history. After she died, I found myself sitting in our house surrounded by those pieces, wondering what the bloody point was. A colleague suggested I take an extended trip, go to the places Helen and I had planned to visit, maybe find some peace. In March, I flew to Bangkok. I was not looking for anything except maybe to feel less empty. I spent 2 weeks exploring temples and museums. Then I took a bus to Ayutthaya, the ancient capital 80 kilometres north. The ruins were spectacular. Helen would have loved it. One afternoon I was browsing a small antique shop near the historical park, started chatting with another customer. British man in his mid-60s. Linen shirt, expensive watch. That confident expat look. He introduced himself as Julian Cartwright. We talked about the artefacts in the shop. Julian explained which pieces were genuine and which were reproductions. Most of what tourists buy is rubbish, Julian said. The real pieces, genuinely old artefacts, are heavily regulated. Export licenses, authentication certificates. That is where the real business is. You are in the antique business? 22 years. I run an export company that supplies galleries and collectors in Europe and America. Quite lucrative if you know what you are doing. Famous last words. Julian invited me to visit his showroom the next day. Said I should see how a proper operation works. The next morning, I took a taxi to the address. Large colonial-style building on the outskirts of Ayutthaya, set back from the road behind a high wall. Security guard in a small booth. Everything looked professional. Legitimate. Inside, the building had been converted into a beautiful showroom. Glass cases displaying Buddha statues, ceramics, bronze pieces, ancient textiles, track lighting. Climate control humming quietly. It looked like a proper museum. Not a shop. A museum. Julian greeted me and introduced me to his authentication specialist, Narisa. Late 30s. Thai woman. Simple black dress. Pearl earrings. Hair tied back professionally. Welcome, she said in perfect English. I am Narisa. I handle all authentication and provenance documentation. She led me through the showroom. Her heels clicked on the polished floor. She stopped at a bronze Buddha head. This is late Ayutthaya period, she explained. 17th century. See the shape of the Ushnisha, the curl pattern of the hair. These details tell you everything. Fully documented provenance. Fine Arts Department approval for export. She knew her stuff. Not just reciting facts. Actually knew it. The way I knew tax codes. I studied art history at Chulalongkorn University, she said. Specialised in Ayutthaya and Sukhothai period sculpture. Worked for the National Museum for 6 years before joining Julian's company. I visited the showroom 5 times over the next 2 weeks. Narisa coordinated most of my visits. She would take me through authentication processes, show me how to identify genuine pieces. We would have coffee at a small cafe near the historical park. She would pull out her laptop and walk me through fine arts department approval processes. Thai law is very specific about exporting antiques, she explained. The process takes 3 to 4 months. Most dealers do not have the patience or connections. I built relationships with department officials over 6 years at the museum. She wore different professional outfits each time. Navy blazer one day, cream blouse with grey trousers another. Always had her leather portfolio. Always organised, like someone who took her work seriously. We talked about more than just business, about Thai culture, about Ayutthaya's history, about what had drawn me to Thailand. My wife Helen loved Asian art, I found myself saying one afternoon. We planned to visit Thailand together. She never got the chance. Narisa looked at me with what seemed like genuine sympathy. I am very sorry. When did you lose her? 3 years ago. Aneurysm. That must have been devastating. I nodded, surprised to find myself tearing up in front of someone I barely knew. During one visit, she took me to Wat Mahathat, the famous temple with the Buddha head entwined in tree roots. We walked through the ruins together in the late afternoon heat. This is where Ayutthaya art truly came alive, she said. The fusion of Khmer and Mon influences, you can see it in every Buddha face. She would stop at different ruins, explain architectural details, point out features I would have walked past. The Burmese destroyed most of this in 1767, she said, gesturing to the ruined temples around us. But what survived is extraordinary. We sat on ancient stones in the shade, the afternoon sun pressing down, tourists wandering past with their cameras. Helen would have loved this, I said without thinking. Narisa looked at me gently. Julian told me about your wife. Coming here, working with these artifacts, preserving this history. It is a way to honour her memory, to do what you had planned together. I felt tears in my eyes. This woman I had just met understood something I had been struggling to articulate for 3 years. That evening Narisa texted me. Thank you for sharing about Helen today. I know how hard loss is. I went through a difficult divorce 2 years ago. Not the same as losing someone to death, but the grief of losing a partnership is real. I texted back. I am sorry. Divorce is its own kind of loss. Yes, sometimes I think it is harder because they are still out there, living their life, while you are rebuilding yours. At least that is how it felt for me. We texted more that week. She would send photos of new acquisitions, but also more personal messages. Rainy day in Ayutthaya, missing having someone to share coffee with on days like this. One evening she texted, would you like to have dinner? Not business. Just 2 people who have both lost partnerships and are trying to figure out what comes next. We met at a small restaurant overlooking the river. She arrived in jeans and a simple cream-coloured top. First time I'd seen her not dressed for business. Needed a break from blazers, she said, smiling. We ordered food, tom yum soup, grilled fish. The evening air, warm and thick. Most people do not understand what it is like to rebuild after loss, she said. My ex-husband left me for someone younger. Said I was too focused on work, too serious. Not fun anymore. She looked at me across the table. But work was how I survived after my father died. The artifacts, the history. It gave me purpose when everything else felt meaningless. I understood completely. After Helen died, I threw myself into work too. The numbers, the spreadsheets, things that made sense when nothing else did. Exactly, she said, softly. You understand? She reached across and touched my hand. Just for a moment. I'm glad you came to Ayutthaya, Anthony. Most investors just want to talk about profit margins, but you actually care about the artifacts, about the history, about preserving something meaningful. I felt something shift inside me. Not just gratitude, something deeper. Over the next week, we had 2 more dinners. Each time felt less like business and more like something else. Something I had not felt since Helen died. She invited me to her apartment one evening. Small place near the old city. Books everywhere. Artifacts on shelves. Photos of temple ruins on the walls. I cook when I am stressed, she said, smiling. Tonight I am making massaman curry. Hope you are hungry. She moved around the small kitchen with easy confidence, chopping vegetables, stirring the curry paste. The smell filling the apartment. I sat at her small table and watched her cook. It felt domestic, intimate. We ate on her small balcony, overlooking rooftops. The evening air warm, the sounds of the city distant. After my divorce, I thought I would never let anyone in again, she said quietly. Easier to just focus on work, keep everything professional. Safe. She looked at me. But then you showed up. This British accountant who actually understands why these artifacts matter. Who lost someone too. Who knows what it is like to rebuild. She reached for my hand across the small table. Helen would want you to be happy again, to find purpose, maybe even to open your heart again. I held her hand. I have not felt this comfortable with someone since Helen died. Me neither, she said. Not since the divorce. We sat like that for a while, her hand in mine, the warm evening wrapping around us. I should have known then, but I did not. After 2 weeks of evaluation, I made my decision. The business model was sound. The artifacts were genuine. The export licenses were properly documented. I had reviewed tax returns, verified bank statements, checked company registration. Everything checked out. I invested £80,000 to become a partner in Ayutthaya, Heritage Exports Limited Partnership. We met at a lawyer's office in Bangkok. The lawyer, a Thai woman named Apinya, explained the structure, partnership terms, profit distribution, export regulations. I signed the documents, transferred £80,000. Narisa sent me a message that evening. Welcome to the team. I am so glad you are part of this. We are going to do beautiful work together. Then, Helen would be proud of what you are building here. I really believe that. For the first 6 months, everything went exactly as promised. I received detailed monthly reports, photographs of new acquisitions, documentation of sales to galleries in London and San Francisco. My first quarterly profit distribution was £14,000, slightly below projections but well within expected range. I visited Ayutthaya twice during those months. Narisa and I would have dinner, walk through the old city. She would update me on the business, show me new pieces. You are different from most investors, she said one evening at a restaurant overlooking the river. She wore a dark blue dress, silver bracelet. Most people just want returns. You actually care about the artifacts, about the history. She reached across the table, touched my hand. What we are building here, it honours Helen's memory. You are doing what you planned together. That is beautiful. I felt myself falling for her. Not just attracted, actually falling. She would text late sometimes. Cannot sleep, thinking about the new collection we just acquired. Cannot wait to show you. Or, missing our dinners. When are you coming back to Thailand? I started planning to spend more time in Ayutthaya, maybe relocate there permanently, build something with Narisa. Not just the business, something more. In month 7, I received an email from Julian. A private collector in Sukhothai was selling his entire collection. Rare Sukhothai period bronzes. Museum-quality pieces. The entire collection could be purchased for £250,000. This is the kind of opportunity that comes along once in a decade, Julian wrote. But we need to move quickly. The seller has other interested buyers. I was hesitant. That was a significant additional investment. But the first 6 months had been profitable. The business was legitimate. I had verified everything. I transferred another £88,000. Total investment, £168,000. 2 weeks later, Julian sent photos of the newly acquired collection. The pieces were stunning. Bronze Buddhas with that distinctive Sukhothai flame finial. Walking Buddha images with flowing robes. Narisa sent excited messages. These pieces are extraordinary. We already have interest from 2 museums in America. This is going to be our biggest sale. Then, thank you for believing in what we are building, for believing in me. That should have been it. But in month 8, Julian contacted me again. One of the American museums wanted to purchase additional pieces, but needed them authenticated by a specific expert in California. The authentication process would cost £50,000, but would increase the sale price by £120,000. I hesitated, but I had already invested £168,000. What was another £50,000 to secure a major sale? I transferred £50,000. Total investment, £218,000. Then silence. For 2 weeks I heard nothing. No updates. No responses to my emails. I tried calling Julian, straight to voicemail. I tried calling Narisa. Her number was disconnected. That sick feeling in my stomach. The one that tells you something is very wrong. I flew to Bangkok and took a taxi to Ayutthaya. drove straight to the showroom. The gate was locked. Security guard gone. I peered through the fence. The building looked dark and empty. I felt my chest go tight. I walked to Narisa's apartment. Knocked on the door. A Thai woman answered. Different woman. She said she had been living there for 3 weeks. Did not know anyone named Narisa. I stood in that hallway and felt the world tilt. I went to the police. They gave me a report number and said they would investigate. 1 sentence. That was it. No sympathy. No urgency. Just a report number. 2 weeks later they called me back. Told me what they had found. Ayutthaya Heritage Exports Limited Partnership did exist as a registered company, but it had been dissolved 2 years earlier for failure to file required reports. Everything I had signed was fake. The lawyer opinion did not exist. The office had been rented for the day. The tax returns I had reviewed were forgeries. The bank statements showing deposits from galleries were real bank statements, but the deposits were not from galleries, they were from other victims like me. The export licenses were elaborate fakes. The authentication certificates were worthless. Julian Cartwright was not his real name. Gerald Winters. He had been involved in similar scams in Vietnam and Cambodia. Narisa was using a fake identity. The police believed she was part of an organised crime network that specifically targeted foreign investors. How many others? I asked. We believe there were at least 6 investors over 18 months. Your loss appears to be the largest single investment. Total losses probably exceed £800,000. I felt physically sick. The detective was blunt. The money was transferred out within days of each deposit. Your chances of recovering anything are very low. Very low. Almost zero. I flew back to Leeds 2 weeks later. Financially devastated. Emotionally destroyed. £218,000. Most of my retirement savings. Helen's life insurance money. Gone. But the money was not even the worst part. It was Narisa. Those walks through Wat Mahathat. The way she explained Ayutthaya art history. The passion in her voice. The dinner when she told me about her divorce. Her ex-husband leaving for someone younger. Work was how I survived after my father died. When she cooked massaman curry in her small apartment. The smell filling the space. After my divorce, I thought I would never let anyone in again. When she touched my hand on the balcony. Helen would want you to be happy again. The late-night texts. Missing our dinners. Thank you for believing in me. I had felt like I'd found not just a business opportunity, but someone who understood my loss, who had been through loss herself, who made me feel less alone for the first time in 3 years. All of it calculated. All of it fake. She knew Thai art history the way I knew financial documents. She could discuss Sukhothai period iconography, provenance, documentation, fine arts department regulations. She knew it because she had studied exactly how to fool people like me. Every conversation about Thai culture was designed. Every text about artifacts was staged. Every moment at those ruins was scripted. Every touch of my hand was calculated. The woman who cooked for me did not exist. The woman who told me about her divorce did not exist. The woman who said Helen would want me to be happy again did not exist. I am back in Leeds now, working part-time as a bookkeeper, at 58, after 34 years as an accountant. I tell people I am semi-retired. I do not tell them I am semi-retired because I lost my retirement savings to a woman who studied exactly how accountants verified documents and then gave me documents designed to pass every check I knew how to make. I still have her number saved in my phone. I know it is disconnected, but I cannot bring myself to delete it. Some nights I look at the photos she sent. Me, the bronze Buddhas, the ceramic pieces, the temple ruins at sunset. I know they were just props, just part of the set. But I look at them anyway. I checked every document. I verified tax returns. I reviewed bank statements. I confirmed company registration. I missed one thing. I never checked if the company was still active. I checked that it existed. I never checked if it had been dissolved. One search. One simple company status search. That is all it would have taken. I spent 34 years as an accountant. I knew how to verify documents. I knew how to spot irregularities. But I did not know how to spot someone who had studied exactly how I would verify documents and gave me documents designed to pass every check. She knew I would verify the tax returns, so she gave me real tax return forms with fake numbers. She knew I would check bank statements, so she gave me real bank statements with fake deposits. She knew I would want to see the showroom. So She rented a building and filled it with artifacts. She knew I would want authentication. So she invented a degree from Chulalongkorn University and 6 years at the National Museum. She knew I was lonely, so she told me about her divorce. She knew I missed Helen, so she said Helen would want me to be happy. She knew I needed to feel like I was honouring Helen's memory. So she turned the scam into a tribute. Every vulnerability I had, she weaponised. £218,000. That is what it cost me to learn that the woman who walked me through ancient ruins at sunset and cooked massaman curry and touched my hand on the balcony and said Helen would be proud of me was a professional who knew exactly how to make an accountant believe he had verified everything. I checked every document. I just never checked if the company was still alive. That is Anthony's story. 58 years old. 34 years as an accountant. £218,000. Most of his retirement savings. Gone. Not because he was careless, because someone studied exactly how careful people think and built a trap specifically for them. This is my Thailand stories. Sometimes the most dangerous scams are the ones designed for people who think they are too careful to be scammed. Stay safe out there.